So as you recall, my decals are all cracked and nasty. And I am masking to make my own masks using Tamiya tape. And I'm masking everything off to paint them with airbrush. So um, what I do is take a piece of tape. For the fuselage ones, they were small enough I could just use a single piece of tape. For the wings, they're a little bigger. So I take two pieces and sandwich them, overlap them slightly. Um, and when I pull the tape off, by the way, you start from the top down. So start with the one that's on the bottom of the um, board, because otherwise you're going to end up having a problem. So because you might peel things off. So you get your little compass to the right thickness, and that's just an Olfa cutter that I got when Joanne Fabrics was alive. But you can get them almost anywhere. And nice sharp blade, and you twirl it around, and you're making the opening for the blue and the white at this point. You peel that off carefully because you don't want it to make any funny you don't want to make any funny little ripples or things. So now you've got that piece, which is the inside, and you got this piece. Now, just to be sure, to be careful, I tend to put a little piece of tape along the seam just to help doubly sure that it won't fall apart, because there's nothing worse than doing this and then having it come apart because you worked hard to make it a certain way, and since it took two pieces of tape together to make this, you want to make sure it stays together. But anyway, there you go. Now pull this apart, and again start from, in this case, I'm feeling where it is. It's from the top side. So that part is the bottom piece that was on the board. So start with the one that's on the bottom of the board, because as you peel off, it'll automatically won't rip the other piece. You won't separate them. So take this off, and you gotta do it kind of carefully. Take one side back and forth, back and forth. Then you got this piece. Now you grab your Aerocraft and you place it where it's supposed to go. And you take some time to figure out where that is. I already know where it's supposed to go, at least based on what I have on the pictures I have. So that looks fine. And so that's the first step. And then you're going to mask on the outside of that to make sure you don't get overspray. I burnish it down, usually with a toothpick of some kind. I'm just using tweezers, but make sure it's got a nice edge and it's flat up against your component. And then you cut out the star. So what I do, and there's a bunch of ways to do it, I'm sure, is I'll just take this piece and I'm figuring out which way is which. I got to start from the top. There we go. Because I will put a piece of tab on that later. But I put this down so that it's over the star. You see that's actually a little bit small. It should be a little bit bigger. And I made sure that seam is kind of diagonal so I don't have a little tip where the seam is of the star. And you can see the star right through that. And then you just take your straight edge and you start cutting them out. And it's just a matter of very carefully starting from the center and going out to the tip, unless you're going on that side. So you just keep doing this all the way around, and to keep track of what I'm cutting, and by the way, a sharp, brand new razor blade or X-Acto blade is absolutely essential. It makes your life so much easier. So then you go through here and you just keep on keeping on all the way around, and you just don't want to cut too far into what will be the white part. And then when you're done, you can very easily peel these off. I know what I do is I just get the tip of the knife underneath the edge of the tip of the star and just gently pull it off. If there's problems, you can usually get it separated. But I get them so that they're coming off a little bit, but I don't just yank them off, because if you just yank everything off, you're going to rip or you're going to have some problems. So what I do is get them started and just make sure they're all loose, basically. And then I take a pair of tweezers and I pull off, and I very carefully, and I sort of walk it around and pull up each individual piece so that I know they're coming off. Very seldom do they stick to the decal and pull up the decal. That happens very rarely. as long as you're, just careful. So see, I'm leaving this on here because I'm just being careful, pulling this around. And there you go. So now that you've done all that, now you put something around. You can use masking tape, you can use whatever, because you want to make sure you don't get overspray. Believe me, you will. And so it looks like overkill, but dang it, every time I've done this, it works wonderfully, but it really bums you out when you do a great job and then you get overspray. So just mark everything off and make sure that, your airbrush is great, but you will get overspray. So one thing I would do for sure is take the tip off so you can get a fine spray. And what you're going to do now is spray white. And that's going to do two things. That is going to, of course, have a white background for the stars, which we'll put in there. But it's also going to provide sort of a base so that the color will go over things and look really nice, as opposed to just going over the green. I mean, the green, it'll work, but it would definitely work, except it will probably look a little better, like the blue will be a truer blue if you do that. So we make sure that you've got something nice, and then you start spraying this. And I start spraying outside just to make sure. You should spray this thing all white. Kind of spray it perpendicular as much as you can to the mask, because nothing should go under it, but you never know. So that's all you're doing, spraying these down. And since you've sort of done your due diligence and you've kind of put your, hopefully, you've burnished them a little bit, everything should be fine. Making sure that one's tight in there. See, there's a little bit sticking out there. Make sure that doesn't stick out. And then what we'll do with this is let this dry thoroughly. And then we're going to put those stars that we cut out, stick them in there, and even them out. Make sure that they're nice and, make sure everything looks good. But if we put the little stars in there and then spray blue, then you will end up with a nice star. Oops. I bet you we don't let it spray in there because that came up. But what you're going to end up with is a nice color blue, and I'm just going to use a blue background. So I just let those dry. Let them dry goodly. So, because you don't want them to things to pull up and everything, and these will be sticky for a little bit. So let them dry, depending on your paint, of course, but let them go. Don't play with them. Things like the spinner and the tip of the rudder that are going to be yellow, I wanted them to be green, like from the factory, and then spray yellow over, because I think it'd be more accurate. They wouldn't put white first. They would just in the field throw in their yellow. So that's what we're going to do with those. But I'll clean this up. This will dry a little bit, and then we'll put the stars in the middle, and then we'll finish the painting. Okay, so I have added everything. I did end up using masking tape on the back here just as a precaution. But you can see I've put the little yellow stars everywhere, about as centered as I think I can get them. I mean, you take your chances. And so now what you do is you take your blue paint and you go ahead and spray. And you should be able to spray again perpendicular as much as possible. Fill her up. light coat is good. Don't go crazy. I'll come back and get this again. We'll get it over time here. And again, overspray. It's important to avoid overspray. So you're always making sure that you're staying within that realm there. And again, sort of perpendicular. Oh, pretty good. If it isn't, it almost doesn't matter if it's not perfectly blue, because you're going to be fading these things out anyway when we're doing some more weathering. So you don't have to be going completely nuts about this. You don't have to cover, but that's beautiful. Okay, we'll do this one. Perpendicular. You can see I don't have it thinned quite right. There's a lot of overspray. That is why we have all that nice stuff over there, so our green isn't getting splattered. That looks good. The last one is under here. And this one's the least important, but we're not going to see this one much unless we display the airplane upside down, which we likely won't. All right. So we're going to look this one more time and just make sure, are there any places that need a little extra oomph? Over there. Especially the stuff, the top side stuff you're going to see all the time. Make sure the blue is completely covered and everything looks good. I think we're going to stop there. Realize too that, you can always do a little bit of damage control on these sorts of things. Like if the thing is not, if there's a little speck of blue somewhere that's not supposed to be there, or a little piece of white that's not supposed to be where it's supposed to go, you can go in with a fine brush and you can do a little bit of damage control. It has to be close, but you don't have to get an ulcer over it, because it tends to be that it's working pretty well. I'm going to move this away because I'm in the middle of cleaning this, and I could just see spilling it, and don't ask me how I know that happens. It just does. I'm just going to say that that's a real possibility. I have destroyed and ruined more airplanes and ships and tanks by dropping paint on them. Not ruining them, but you feel like throwing them across the room, and then you calm down after a while, and your wife talks you off the edge, and then you go from there, and you come back a couple days later and start over. It's just such a bummer because you did so well and everything turned out, and then you mess up. But now, referring to these markings, spraying on markings is not hard at all. I mean, you do have to take your time, and it's a lot of fiddling, but it's not that hard. Point of fact, the stars and bars, especially this is just circles and stars, these are like the easiest things to do. This and British roundels are very simple. You just got to kind of think about how you're gonna, what is going to, what do you spray first, sort of. And as long as you get that straight, they're actually quite easy. I mean, it's harder to do stuff like, Italian markings. I have done them before, but they're just a little more complicated in general. Japanese ones are the easiest. What I haven't been able to figure out how to do is spray like, unless it's a really large scale model, spray things like numbers, small numbers that go on the rudder and stuff like this. This is supposed to be yellow numbers that'll go on the rudder. Let's face it, that's not going to be sprayed. I'm not going to airbrush that. It'd be nice if I could, but I think that's just a little too fine for my abilities, I think. I mean, technically you could do it, because all it is, it is just, all it is you cut things out carefully and everything should be fine. But the reality is it might not work quite that way. So let's take this thing inside and attempt to pull these things off, because that way we can get a better lens that's closer and we can see how things go. Or I don't know, let's do them now. I'm excited. Let's do them now. And then we will go inside and sort of get a better lens so it's closer. When you pull tape off of things, do it carefully, because paint shouldn't come off. But, you know, sometimes it does. And again, you don't want all your paint to come off, because you work so hard to make this thing a certain way. Other weird thing I'm noticing is I'm getting like fingerprints on here, darker areas that are really kind of bothering me. But as of now, I don't know if I can wash those off or what the problem with that is. That's kind of a strange thing. Okay, so we will gently pull this off, and we should be left with a nice little circle of blue, which we are. Fantabulous. Okay, let's do this side. We'll save the final reveal of the star for last, because that's the most exciting. I don't see any overspray, which is great so far, or very minimal. Okay, that looks great. This one should be super easy. Zip, 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 and double zip. Beautiful. Now this one shows, I'll show it on the bigger thing. We're going to weather some stuff, so it won't matter, but this has a little bit of white outline on it on one piece, and that's probably because of the either it wasn't masked perfectly, or it's just the nature of the beast. So sometimes that happens and you can't get too terrified about that. So let's go ahead and pull this off and see if it looks. Now you got to be really careful, because you don't want to pull off the you don't touch the white paint much, because then you'll end up, see, look at that. That looks pretty dang nice. I can hit that little spot there, but that looks like a star on a bar to me. Or not a bar, a star. Let's try this guy. These are the ones you want to make sure work. Practice on the bottom. Yeah, that is definitely doable. Look at that. Tiny bit of overspray that can be adjusted, and it looks relatively straight. Looking at that, it looks like the white's over a little bit on that side. It should be over here, but I'm not going to cry about that. I just won't point it out to anybody. That looks so cool. Look at that one. And the last one. If this one works, we're good. Sadly, the worst one so far is the upper wing, but we just won't focus on that. You want the fuselage and the upper wing ones to be the best, because that's what you actually are looking at. But sometimes life hands you lemons and you make vodka. That looks pretty good. So there you go. I'll show a closer view of them, maybe, or not. This is okay. I think you can see them. I'll see if you can see them. I gotta figure out how to get rid of these smooshes here. Seems like when I hold this thing for a long period of time, I end up putting fingerprints on it. I mean, it's darker right out here, but look at that. We got markings, basic markings on here. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And then we will mask off and spray this again, interior green. We'll mask this off and do interior green. We will we'll do some more. Oh, see, look, there's some overspray right there. Look at that. There's some white overspray. So I'll have to just fix that with my green. I got my green, so it's not a big deal, but there's an example of overspray, okay? And there's, I can hit these a little bit. And pretty soon, what we'll probably do is try to get rid of these smooches here. I don't know how. And then use gloss coat it, and then we'll do maybe some washes in some specific places. And then and then we're gonna be in good shape. But yeah, overall, I can touch up some of these places with some overspray, especially on that side. But man, there you go. No decals, no problem. So here it is up closer, and it does look pretty good overall. Everything looks pretty straight. I did put some airbrush parts up there that were overspray, and they look fine. It goes along with all of the beating up part that we're going to do on the airframe, and there's that part. Then I looked at this, and this is much worse than I thought. Even my wife laughed at it.
No, we didn't.
Yes, she did. And so what I'm going to have to do, as per her suggestion, is remask this, paint it white again, and move the star 17 feet over that way, because it just looks stupid. And that's like the first thing you're going to see when you look at the airplane. So way to go, honey. Though you're right, it has to be fixed. But overall, it worked great. I mean, like I said, you don't have decals, no problem. You just make your own. So, and they'll be easier to do things like weather and everything, and you don't have to worry about putting them into panel lines and hitting them with softener, because they're not decals, they're painted. So overall, except for that one top wing one, I think it all went very, very well indeed.